Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Boy, I appreciate you being with me so very, very much. By the way, I want to thank you for all of those who have been ordering Sam Dawson's book, Revelation Realized, a study of martyr vindication from Genesis to Revelation. Had kind of a run on them, to be honest about it. And so I'll be mailing out my very last copies in the morning. And I've got some more ordered, so don't hesitate to go ahead and place your order. Pardon me. I should be receiving some more inventory very, very soon. So, anyway, thank you again for those of you who have ordered that book. Believe you me, you're going to be glad that you ordered the book. Now, we're continuing our study of why N.T. Wright is wrong on the subject of the redemption of creation. I have shared with you an awful lot of information so far, and I want to shift gears. We've over the last couple of videos, I have emphasized that no matter what our concept, it really doesn't matter what our concept of the redemption of creation, pardon me, or the adoption, i.e., the redemption of the body, might be. Paul was emphatic. He stated in multiple ways, with multiple linguistic statements, that coming redemption was imminent. It was coming soon. They were to be standing on the tiptoe with neck outstretched expectation of seeing. The expectation was so urgent that Paul had to go ahead and say in Romans chapter 8, if then we are waiting for this, we have to be patient. And by that, he most assuredly did not mean 2,000 years of waiting. He recognized and said they were standing on tiptoe with the neck outstretched, waiting for what was about to come. They were expecting it to come, but he was saying, okay, if we look for it, if we're expecting it, we have to be patient. He wasn't saying that doesn't mean, or doesn't mean that I didn't mean what I said when we're standing on the tiptoe with neck outstretched. Doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that I'm saying, Paul is saying, doesn't mean that I'm saying we're not really expecting it anytime near soon. It's not what he said. He was not saying, I don't really mean to say it's about to take place. No, he just simply said, we temper our urgent expectation with a dash of patience, knowing that the God of peace will crush Satan under your feet shortly. Intakai, Romans 16:20. So, having gone over that territory of the overwhelming imminence of the redemption of creation, which means that it is also the overwhelming imminence of the adoption, to wit, the redemption of the body. You cannot separate the manifestation of the sons of God, which we're about to investigate, from the adoption, the redemption of the body. They are synchronous events. They're basically synonymous events. That has profound implications for our understanding of Romans chapter 8. So, Paul says, the whole creation is eagerly looking for, apekdekomai, or expecting, apekdekomai, eagerly awaits, standing on tiptoe with neck outstretched. The whole creation is eagerly awaiting that. And what was it they were eagerly awaiting? What was it they were standing on tiptoe with their necks outstretched, looking for it, expecting to see it because it was about to be revealed? What was that? Paul said the whole creation was eagerly awaiting the manifestation of the sons of God. You know, this is one of the aspects of Romans 8:18 through 23, that is very commonly overlooked. A lot of commentators don't give it just a whole lot of attention. They want to skip down to verse 23, where Paul said, we're waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. And they fail to see the correlation, the direct correlation between the manifestation of the sons of God and the redemption of the body. Folks, those are not two radically different things. They are at the very, very least synchronous events. I suggest to you that they're basically synonymous events. I'm not going into that right now, and I'm going to have to be brief. I promised myself I was going to, keep this series on the NT Wright somewhat brief, and here I am, already well into the 20s in a video. So, Paul said that the creation was eagerly awaiting, expecting the manifestation of the sons of God. Well, the word manifestation is from the Greek word apocalypsis. It means the unveiling. It's the drawing back of the curtain, the unveiling of what is already there, as it were, already true, but is now being manifested. And this has to do with, an issue that to some extent, I'm not going to say it's widely ignored. I'm not going to say it's widely not discussed. But it seems to me it is an area, and years ago, I read an article, and oh man, I hate it. Have you ever read an article? You read a quote, and you're going, wow, holy cow, that's fantastic. And you go, I got to remember that. I got to remember where that's at. And then you don't write it down. You don't take note of where it was at. And then later you're going, where was that? Well, that's kind of like this. I read an article years and years, had to be 20 years ago. I believe that the name of the article was The Manifestation of the Sons of God. Every time I study Romans chapter 8, 18 and following, I think about that paper, scholarly paper, a theological journal paper. For the life of me, I cannot remember who wrote it, what journal it was in. I just remember that at the time of the reading, and it's probably somewhere in my files, otherwise known as my piles. And that's not to say I'm terrible at cataloging and filing stuff. It's just that I'm not as efficient as I really should, I guess. And somehow, some way, and I've gone through every stack of papers, of articles that were on my desk up to the time we had to move out of our offices. And by the way, our new office building is almost finished. Yeah. Now, if I could just get my camera situation figured out, and unfortunately I did, to be honest about it. This is a little bit of a digression, but I've spoken to Apple. I have spoken to Sony. They both agree that something has gone wrong with my camera. I have actually plugged my camera into 3 different laptops, and it's not recognizing any of them. I had one of our regular viewers contacted me just the other day and gave me a great suggestion. I haven't had time yet to look into it, but he suggested that I purge all of the software off of the camera, and I go to Sony's website and I upload the new software, see if they've got some updates, some fixes or whatever. And I really, really, really appreciate that suggestion. Like I said, I just simply haven't had time to do it. I haven't had time to contact Sony and say, okay, here's my problem. What do I do? So, that's kind of where I'm at on that. But I have been working as time would permit at all. My workload with the new building is way up here. And I mean, to tell you, it's been almost overwhelming at times. So I'm going to be working feverishly to get my camera fixed so that I have better video as well as better audio. I appreciate you bearing with me in this period of transition. But again, thank the good Lord. My new office building is almost finished, and I got to tell you what, folks, it's going to be beautiful. Very expensive, unfortunately. It's not paid for, unfortunately. So let me just simply say, if you'd still like to help us out on that, it would really, really, really be appreciated. I mean, extremely so. Now then, back to N.T. Wright. The issue of the manifestation of the sons of God is one of those issues that I think holds the key to better understanding of a veritable plethora of New Testament passages that are normally interpreted in a totally radically different way. Here's what I mean. One of the most fundamental controversies of the first century, beginning in the ministry of Jesus, all right, was the question, who are the true sons of God? Who is the true lineage of Abraham? And let me illustrate just a little bit of how Jesus addressed that question, stirred that issue up constantly throughout his ministry. An author by the name of Gary Burge wrote a book, and really, really excellent little book entitled Jesus in the Land. I highly, highly recommend the book. Anyway, Gary Burge points out, I corresponded with him ever so briefly. He was cordial until he found out I was a preterist, and then he stopped corresponding. But nonetheless, Gary Burge points out, at the temple at Jerusalem, there was, in the vestibule, at the entrance into the foyer, overhanging that entrance was a cluster of grapes, golden grapes, and Josephus tells us it was as tall as a man. And then coming out of that cluster of grapes were the vine that came down on either side of the entrance. Well, guess what? That cluster, can you imagine how beautiful that was? That cluster of golden grapes, with each grape as large as a man's head, made of pure gold, represented Israel. The reason for that is, you go back to Jeremiah chapter 2, 19 and following, and the Lord said, speaking of Israel, speaking of Judah specifically, I planted you a right seed, wholly a right vine, grapevine. How then, the Lord says, have you become a corrupt vine unto me? You see, all throughout the Old Testament, Israel was likened to a vine, to a vineyard. In Isaiah chapter 5, the Lord told a parable, and he said, Israel is my vineyard. What more could I do for you, O Israel? I planted you, I nurtured you, I watered you, I tended you, and yet what have you done? Instead of bringing forth righteousness, you have brought forth corruption and evil and violence. So guess what the Lord said? I'm going to uproot you. I'm going to burn you. I'm going to destroy you. And by the way, that was the source of Jesus' parable in Matthew chapter 21. So anyway, you have the image of the vine, the image of the vineyard representing Israel. They were supposed to be the true vine. But in John chapter 15, Jesus said, I am the true vine. You are the branches. If any man does not abide in me, he will be cut off and cast into the fire. Whoa! Because you see, Israel believed as long as you were of the lineage of Abraham, you had your ticket punched to the kingdom. You had your ticket punched to eternal life. You were assured of the blessings of the kingdom. Just because you are of the lineage of Abraham and you dwelt in the land of Israel. And by the way, again, Gary Burge points all this out and says that Jesus' statement, I am the true vine, understood within the context of where he was probably standing, understood within the context of Israel's understanding of her self-identity at that time as the true vine out of all the vines in the world. And here is Jesus saying, I am the true vine. And Jesus was saying, Jesus is identifying a new, he uses the term, Burge uses the term, a new rootedness. Israel is no longer rooted in the physical land. The true people, the true vine, the true branches would be rooted in the person of Jesus Christ. So what's the controversy? The controversy is, who is the true vine? Who are the true people of God? Jesus' words could not have been more challenging, revolutionary, radical. And the Jews didn't appreciate it at all. All you got to do is read John 15 and their response. So beginning in Jesus' ministry, you have him setting up the controversy about who are the sons of God. You remember what Jesus said earlier in John 14? I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, we often preach that in sermons, and we make a pretty good application of it. But it may just be that we're overlooking the fact that Israel saw herself, the corporate body of Israel, as the only way to the Father. Well, in that they were right. Correct? Sure. No issue with that. So what's Jesus doing? Jesus is saying, no. It's not the nation of Israel. It's not the physical lineage of Abraham. That is the only way to the Father. Israel is not the only truth. She is not the only way. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. See the controversy? Head-to-head controversy between what's the true way, what is the truth, what is the way to life. Israel said, we are. We have Moses and the law. We have the temple. We have the priesthood. We have the sacrifices. And Jesus was saying, you don't understand. That was temporary. I am the one to which every bit of that pointed. And beginning very early, very, very early, after the establishment of the church, this controversy over who are the true sons of God took a new radical turn, and it was stated in such a graphic and a powerful way that no Jewish listener could have missed the point. So I'm going to have to spend some time on that next week. All right? But folks, this issue of the identity of the true sons of God and how much of a controversy it was in the first century church, as the early church taught that Jesus is the Messiah, the Christ, the Son of the living God, and He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life, He is the true vine. If you want life, you got to be in Him. And as we will come to one of Paul's really, really key passages, one that I've written a book about. It is an exegesis of Colossians chapter 3, 1 through 3. It is on my website. You really need to get a copy of that book. I'll be sharing that with you later. In the meantime, hope you'll be looking forward to next week in our discussion of the whole creation was eagerly awaiting, standing on tiptoe with neck outstretched, expecting to see the manifestation of the sons of God. You have a fantastic weekend. Be safe. I'll see you on Monday.